The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Meghan Markle locked eyes with Savannah Guthrie, refusing to back down as questions grew sharper. Colder, every word felt like a strike. Every silence felt like a dare. Then, suddenly, Meghan reached her breaking point. Chairs scraped, cameras jerked, and producers yelled for a cut. No one expected what she did next. And when she stormed out, she didn't leave alone. What did Meghan say off mic that sent shockwaves all the way to Buckingham Palace? And why did the network try to bury the footage before viewers could see the truth? New York City's morning lights shimmered against the studio windows as Meghan Markle stepped out of her car, greeted instantly by a relentless burst of paparazzi flashes, far more than usual. She forced a confident smile, but her instincts were shouting that something about today was different. Inside the GMA building, producers hurried by with eyes that wouldn't meet hers. Conversations died the moment she passed. Silence like that wasn't harmless. She'd learned the hard way. It usually meant a storm was coming. In her dressing room, she noticed a sealed ivory envelope sitting alone on the makeup counter with her name handwritten across the front in bold ink. It hadn't been there earlier. She hesitated, studying it, her pulse rising. Before she could reach for the envelope, a producer rushed in, snatched it up, and delivered a stiff explanation. "This is for the hosts." Meghan said nothing, but her suspicion sharpened like a blade. Something was happening behind her back, and whatever was inside that envelope held the key. As makeup artists worked on her face, she tried to calm her thoughts, but whispers outside the door slipped through the cracks. "We've got it, airing in segment 2, someone said. "This will break the internet," another replied. Meghan's fingers tightened around the arm of her chair. She was no stranger to media ambushes, but she'd hoped those days were behind her. The walk toward the stage felt like stepping onto a chessboard where she wasn't sure who the opponent was. The audience applauded as she took her seat under the hot lights, but even the applause sounded wrong, anticipatory, hungry. Across from her, the lead host shuffled a fresh stack of cards, the kind that hadn't been discussed with her team beforehand. Her heartbeat thudded loudly in her ears. She tried to read his expression, but it gave away nothing. Except maybe satisfaction. She tucked a piece of hair behind her ear, her practiced poise slipping just slightly. Then she saw it, the envelope, perched on the desk in plain sight, a silent threat. One host leaned forward and tapped it. In a hushed voice, just loud enough, he said, "We have something to discuss." The message was clear. This interview wasn't what she had been promised. She wasn't stepping into a conversation. She was stepping into a trap. The red camera light blinked on, the live countdown rolled, and Meghan inhaled sharply. 3, 2, 1. The interview began, and Meghan Markle understood in that terrifying, electrifying moment that she wasn't merely a guest on the show today. She was the headline, the target, and the world was about to watch everything unfold. The interview eased in with warm small talk about charity work and upcoming projects. Exactly what Meghan had been briefed on. But Savannah Guthrie's eyes told a different story. They were sharp, analyzing every micro-expression on Meghan's face, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came fast. With a subtle shift in posture and tone, Savannah flipped the script. "Some critics," she began, her voice honeyed yet edged with steel, "believe your influence over Prince Harry has changed him, pulled him away from his family even." Meghan kept her chin lifted, but inside her pulse spiked. There it was, the real agenda. "The first trap," she answered carefully, steady and composed, but Savannah didn't let up. The questions tightened like a vice. Was Meghan responsible for Harry stepping back from royal duties? Did she encourage him to cut off ties with the palace? Was she, as tabloids loved to claim, the mastermind behind every controversial decision he made? Meghan tried to steer the conversation back to positivity and impact, but Savannah wasn't finished. With every question she asked, the envelope sat in front of them, a silent countdown ticking closer to disaster. Meghan caught a small smirk from another anchor, just for a split second. And the message was clear. They knew exactly how this would play out. "Many viewers feel you've controlled the narrative," Savannah pressed, emphasizing the word controlled like it had teeth. "That Harry no longer thinks for himself. That he's under your influence." The sentence hung like a dagger. The studio air grew thick, the audience shifting in their seats, sensing the tension rising. Meghan's mind raced. She could feel the old fears creeping in, the same fears that haunted her during her time in the palace. She remembered the headlines, the betrayal, the endless scrutiny. She thought she had escaped this game, but here she was again, a pawn in someone else's checkmate. She smiled politely, the kind of smile that hides a storm. "Harry is his own man," she responded quietly. "Stronger than most people will ever know." Her voice held warmth, but also a warning. Savannah noticed, and instead of backing down, she leaned farther forward, eyes narrowing like she had just uncovered a crack in Meghan's armor. "Then you won't mind if we dive into some claims from those closest to the royal family?" Savannah gestured ever so casually to the envelope. The camera zoomed in. Meghan's stomach twisted. Whatever was in that envelope wasn't just gossip. It was a weapon. Savannah flipped through her cards, scanning for the next question, something deeper, sharper. "Sources say you've isolated Harry from his brother, Prince William. That you've encouraged distance, even resentment. Are you responsible for their fractured relationship?" The studio fell perfectly silent. Meghan inhaled, feeling that familiar sting of being misunderstood, misjudged, villainized. She could hear her heartbeat louder than the clapping they played coming into the show. She wasn't losing her composure, but she was getting dangerously close to revealing how all of this truly hurt. She answered with grace again, but she could feel the ground shifting. Control of this conversation was slipping. Each question wasn't looking for clarity, it was building a case. Savannah wasn't interviewing her. She was cornering her. And the envelope. It wasn't just evidence, it was ammo. Meghan's eyes flicked toward it again. What had they dug up? A leaked message? A personal letter? Something from her past she thought was buried? She tried to move the interview back toward her advocacy, but Savannah cut her off mid-sentence. "We will get to that," she said sharply. "But the world wants to know why Harry changed after you arrived." The implication wasn't subtle. It was a direct accusation. Meghan's professional mask wavered, not visibly, but enough for Savannah to notice. The host smiled internally, victorious. Meghan shifted in her chair, sitting taller, her voice calm but laced with steel. "If defending my husband and protecting my family from harm makes me controlling," she paused, looking straight into the camera, "then maybe people should reconsider what love really looks like?" A murmur rolled through the audience. Savannah didn't like that answer, because it showed strength, not guilt. But the ambush wasn't over. Savannah placed her hand on the envelope. "Well, love is powerful, and sometimes power can turn dangerous." The words dropped like a bomb. Meghan felt heat rising under her skin. There, live on national television? She finally realized the truth. They didn't just want a story, they wanted a scandal. The next move would determine whether Meghan walked out of this room in control of her own narrative, or watched the world turn on her again. Savannah's smile tightened as she slid the envelope closer, tapping it once like a judge about to deliver a verdict. "These," she announced, "are private communications from inside Kensington Palace." The audience gasped softly. Meghan's breath caught in her chest. Emails. From who? Her eyes narrowed, but she refused to blink. Savannah continued. "Sources claim these messages show attempts to influence Harry, strategies to manipulate his decisions, and distance him from his family." The words were framed as a question, but they were delivered like a conviction. Meghan's fingers dug into the edges of her seat. She wasn't terrified. She was furious. She had lived this nightmare before. Accusations whispered in dark corridors. Her voice drowned beneath headlines. But this time she wasn't inside the palace walls. She wasn't powerless. Meghan leaned forward, lowering her voice, letting the cameras catch every syllable. "You know those emails were never meant for the public. So what exactly are you suggesting?" Savannah hesitated just a flicker, then pressed on. "I'm suggesting the world deserves transparency." That line, smooth, righteous, was the exact kind of excuse the media always used to pry into her life. Meghan's color drained for a moment, not from guilt, but from recognition. She remembered who wrote those emails. She remembered the plea for protection, the receipts of mistreatment, the proof the palace never wanted exposed. They weren't evidence of manipulation, they were evidence of survival. Savannah thought she had trapped her. Instead, she had unlocked something dangerous. Meghan exhaled slowly, her anger sharpening into purpose. "If you want transparency," she said with ice-cold calm, "then let's tell the full truth. On air, right now." The table between them suddenly felt like a battlefield line. Savannah blinked, caught off guard. "What truth?" she managed. Meghan didn't look at her. She looked straight into the camera, millions of viewers watching. The truth about what they did to us. To me, the stories they silenced. The threats they ignored. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with power finally breaking free. Savannah swallowed. This was not the reaction she expected. Meghan continued, refusing to look away. If you open those emails, I will finish the story they tried to bury. A chill rippled through the studio. This wasn't a defensive move, it was a warning. A promise. For the first time, Savannah's confidence slipped. She glanced toward the control room where frantic producers gestured wildly. The audience sensed the shift. Tension vibrated like a live wire. Meghan sat taller, steady, unstoppable. I didn't come here to fight, she said softly. But I won't let lies define my family ever again. The camera zoomed in close. No one dared breathe. The envelope remained unopened, its power suddenly reversed. And just like that, the palace wasn't the one holding secrets over Meghan anymore. She was holding one over them. The segment was supposed to cut to a commercial, but someone in the control room missed the cue. The microphones dipped, lowered but not fully muted. That's when it happened. Savannah leaned toward a co-host, her smile frozen in place for the camera, and whispered through clenched teeth, "Just stick to the script." She's playing the victim again. The words slipped out like venom. They weren't meant for the audience. They weren't meant for Meghan. But they landed anyway. Meghan's eyes snapped up, shock striking her like a flash of lightning. For a split second, she wondered if she imagined it. But then came the co-host's reply, just as quiet, just as cutting. The palace will love this. A chill carved through the studio. The audience didn't react. They hadn't heard it clearly. But Meghan had. And she understood instantly, this wasn't journalism. This wasn't a difficult interview. This was a setup, perfectly orchestrated, scripted cruelty disguised as truth. Her hands steadied against the armrests, knuckles whitening as she rose to her feet, not fast, not dramatic, but slow and controlled, like a storm deciding whether to strike. Cameras scrambled to follow her movement. Savannah's smile faltered. She knew. She had been heard. Meghan stared at her, silence heavier than any accusation. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely above a whisper, but the kind that could shatter glass. So that's what this is? A show written to destroy me? Savannah's eyes darted to the cameras, panic flickering beneath the makeup. Meghan, let's just... she began. But Meghan didn't let the lie breathe. No, you planned this. You planned all of this. Every light in the studio felt hotter, every pair of eyes wider. Meghan's pulse throbbed in her ears, but she wasn't afraid. She was done playing nice to protect people who had never protected her. Producers rushed forward, waving their hands, signaling to cut to break. But it was too late. Meghan lifted her chin, her anger burning into clarity. They had underestimated her, again. The trap they set had sprung, just not the way they expected. And now the entire world was watching the hunters fear the prey. Meghan wasn't running anymore. She was preparing to strike. Meghan's pulse pounded in her ears as she stared down Savannah, realizing every second of this interview had been engineered to corner her. She wasn't going to let them. With a sharp pull, she ripped the mic from her dress, the noise slicing through the silent studio like a blade. "I'm not here to be your villain," she said, voice low but lethal. "And I won't let you turn my life into a spectacle anymore." The audience sat frozen as she turned and walked off the set, heels striking the floor with furious precision. The show struggled to cut to commercial, producers whispering frantic orders into headsets, but cameras still caught her disappearing into the hallway. She pushed through the backstage doors and pressed her hand to the wall, trying to breathe through the adrenaline and anger battling inside her. She thought she was alone, but she wasn't. A young production assistant had followed her, phone lifted just enough to record. She hadn't meant to betray her workplace, but after hearing Savannah's cruel off-mic line, she couldn't unhear the truth. Her phone captured Meghan whispering, "They set me up." Again. The pain in her voice wasn't weakness. It was the echo of every time the world had tried to break her. Meghan straightened, eyes fierce despite the tears threatening to fall. "I'm done being afraid," she said, each word gaining strength. "If they want to fight, they'll get the truth instead." The assistant's breath hitched, her camera trembling as Meghan continued. "The palace thinks they can bury everything forever. But not this time. I won't let them." Suddenly security appeared, stepping between Meghan and the phone, ordering recordings to stop. The assistant lowered her device, but the clip was already saved. Meghan brushed past everyone, walking toward the exit, shoulders squared like a soldier in battle. She wasn't running. She was reclaiming her story. Back inside the studio, anchors scrambled to pretend everything was fine, but panic flickered across their faces. Phones buzzed. Producers barked commands. Someone whispered, "The palace is going to freak out." And then, the spark lit the wildfire. The assistant's video, emotional, raw, impossible to spin, was secretly sent out. Within minutes it was posted. Within an hour, millions had seen Meghan Markle shaking but unbroken as she said she refused to be silenced anymore. Screens worldwide replayed her words, "I will not let them destroy my family again." Comments exploded with support. Hashtags surged, and somewhere behind guarded royal walls, panic rose like smoke. Meghan's exit wasn't humiliation. It was liberation. For years they'd tried to control her narrative. Today, Meghan Markle looked into the lens and took it back. And as her clip continued spreading at unstoppable speed, one truth became terrifyingly clear for the people who once held power over her. She wasn't leaving the fight. She was leading it.